It's not a hidden fact that Rovio makes a lot of content for Angry Birds. When they do this, it's quite surprising when we actually don't get some of the content they're not using. And it's actually quite interesting to see what could have been. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at some of the unused content in certain games. And trust me, this gets real interesting the deeper we get. Let me tell you this, I know some of the things on this list can be quite bizarre and quite interesting, so let's get straight into the game that we will be taking a closer look at some of the unused content of today's Angry Birds game. Some of these things in this video are really interesting that could have been in the game, so let's just get straight into it. The game that we have selected for today's video is going to be the most epic of all the games in the Angry Birds series, which is a lot. Is Angry Birds Epic. This turn-based role-playing game was developed by Rovio, obviously, and we need some characters to play as. Let's look at some unused characters that we could have been using. Starting off with a post from Rovio from their Twitter linking 3 characters, and we actually seen one of these characters, the superhero, later in the game. The 2 that we don't see being Wild West and also Steampunk. Much is not known about these 2 classes, but judging from their aesthetics, there was obviously 2 main themes behind both of these characters. The Wild West being a cowboy influenced one that would assumingly be unlocked during the desert levels, which would have been really cool. And if you know anything about Rango, it kind of gives me those vibes. And Steampunk I think could have been a really cool class, using some steam pressured weapons or coming with a set that could be really interesting to have and use. But we obviously didn't get to see this. We did get to see the superhero, which is a really cool class to see, but these 2 classes were really cool, and I wish we did get to see a bit more for them to come in later. And it's sad that we never got to see them after this clip of them, and yeah, hopefully we get to see them come back in some type of way, maybe in a remastered version one day. You thought I was done with unused classes? Not at all. We have a couple more classes to come. But before we get to the next one, I ask one thing of you: to drop a subscribe. You can always change your mind whenever you want, and 1 in 10 people are subscribed, so I would really appreciate it if you drop a subscribe. It's quick, it's easy, only takes 5 seconds, and yeah, let's get back to it. So the next characters we have up next is actually 4 characters being an option, and they are all for the Blues, which is quite interesting. We actually did get one of these characters, being this 3rd one right here, being a legacy character that we did see in the game, so we're not going to talk about. The other 3 are really interesting. We're going to start with the first one, obviously, being a robber blue costume. It's actually quite interesting. There's like a zombie, has a robbery or robber black and white suit on it. It's actually really interesting and it looks really cool, being a really nice design, and I think should have been in the game, which is really unique. We could have seen maybe a attack that would do a little damage with coins or whatever is in the back, and the backpack or the bag or whatever it is. It could be really interesting to see. Next we have what I like to call the Scarecrow blue costume. It's actually really greatly designed. Again, some of these sketches being a lot better designed personally, and a lot more creative, obviously being behind them, in my personal opinion, in a lot of these sketches, and they're done really nice. We can see a lot of effort been put into, and it's just sad we didn't get to see what it could have been inside of the game. Last but not least, being the last one, it's actually the most interesting one. It's being a dead red bird, which is, yeah, I know, insane. And it's actually quite interesting how this even was a concept. I don't understand how this would have happened, or like the situation on where they would get a dead red and decide to put it on the top blue's head. And probably Jim. It's definitely Jim. Jim's sassy like that. Okay, so once you're done looking at dead red on the Blues, it's a own situation to talk about in its own whole section. We'll move on to one of the variants of a character that we did get, that we just didn't get this exact variant, being a very unique for the July edition, being for the Stone Guard. Actually seen in one of the promotional posters that Rovio did like to post a lot of for Angry Birds Epic. We see this with American flag in the background with some nice fireworks in the background too, and we just see him happy, smiling, and being happy that we can't play as him, which is really sad because he looks cool. Would have been nice to have maybe on the day of 4th of July, maybe a daily or single day limited edition character you get for free. Something like that would have been nice, but yet again we didn't get it. It's nice to see, but we move on. The next class I want to bring to light, or maybe a prototype more like it, is going to be one that is actually an icon general. This image found in the files of Angry Birds Epic seems to be some type of prototype of what the Night Roll would have came to, and some type of character that created the foundation for the future classes of the game. And it just shows a classic red, obviously coming from the original game, not being one of the updated models or art styles, but a helmet on with some horns with a nice, beautifully red hair coming out of it. Maybe it's Red's hair. Maybe Red is growing out with his hair. We never know. But looks cool. Very interesting. One of the coolest pre-game arts I've seen in a game in quite a while. I think they definitely should have went a bit further with this. But sadly, never got any further than this. Next up, we have some unused app icons, being interesting, not as much as others. But starting off with one where Red seems to be blowing through a wood board. We just see his angry face going through some wood boards. Boards? It'd be nice if I could easily say the word boards. And now to some of the more interesting app icons, being actually the next four. We have the top left one being a nice, beautiful, epic photo of Red gleaming in the sunshine, being really nice, showing a shield and also a sword, gazing off to the distance, probably wondering on how he's going to get his eggs back from the whiz pig. Next, we have a really similar one to the first one, being where he's just him gazing off to the sunlight to the far right, yet again just without the shield and the sword, also being quite another nice app icon that I could imagine myself clicking on instead of the typical blue backgrounded Angry Birds one that we have today, that you can't really get anymore because obviously we all know Angry Birds was taken. But would have been nice to see a change. Would have been nice to see. Now we have the bottom left one, this being a different graphical design than some of the other ones, with a wood style 3D art style that I'm not too big of a fan, with Red's sword being a feather and also could have been green, optional, but I'm not too big of a fan with this one. Probably my least favorite on the ones that haven't been used. And the bottom right probably being the most interesting one, with two pigs, one in a beautiful Angry Birds. Oh, it's a red costume. Okay, I was trying to understand why it's a red costume, and a pig in the background that Red is obviously getting into an argument with, which is really interesting. Next up, we have some nice and alternative designs of some of the classes that we did get, especially for the wizard being Chuck. We had a lot of different head shapes, hat shapes that could have been into the game, with the top left being really close to the one that we did get, being a bit different but near enough to the real one, to ones like the second row right one being way different to what we got. And a lot of these looking really different to ones that we got in the game. And I'll just let you ponder at this image for a while. But it's really interesting to see what we could have had. And we still got the wonderful beauty of concept art for other pigs being in the game. And we see some being a lot hairier and bushier, I guess, than some of the other ones. Again, I'll leave you ponder at this page. The top left one being near enough to the basicest version you could get, but slowly getting wilder and wilder the lower and the more right we get, which is really interesting to see some of the unused content that could have been. And if you're curious about some of the unused content in your favorite game, let me know in the comments below which game you want to see the unused content or. And if you enjoyed this and you're still here, I'd love and I'd appreciate if you just press the subscribe button, hit the like button. I'll see you in the next one.